In this video, I raid 100 bases in Rust, starting with easy raids, then working my way up to some of the hardest solo raids I've ever done. What loot would I get? How would I deal with online defenders? And what would I learn from raiding 100 bases as a solo in Rust? For my first raid, I would be starting off with an eco raid on a wooden shelter. This is probably the easiest raid you can do in Rust, and while most of the time these things are just empty, every once in a while you can get a lucky find. Alright, what do we got? A bow. Some metal. Ooh, okay. That was actually worth. I was still on day 1 of my wipe, so pretty much any loot here was valuable to me. So I continued raiding shacks for raid number 2, but this one went about as bad as it possibly could. No, a rock. I think this is a good time to mention that all 100 raids were done on one wipe on an official vanilla server. This was nearly a full 30-day journey, so easing myself into this with some small eco raids early on here was a good way for me to just start knocking some raids out. The server was 3 days old, so there were a couple of these decayed bases with TCs in them. Raiding these was a good way to get some resource going since I still needed a bit more scrap to get a tier 2. Once I got that tier 2, I could start doing some Molotov raids, but for now, on raid 5, I was back to doing another Satchel raid. This base was super close to mine, so I just needed to get rid of it. This raid was about to be a disaster. Hello? Dude, oh my god. There's a guy here. Dude, why are there 4 pigs here? Alright, I think I can jump past this shotgun trap if I go wide. Yeah. No way, dude. Who is this? Yeah, this loser just got the satchels and ran. Even tried to... Oh no, he's just hiding in a bush. Okay. This guy ended up stealing everything from the raid, which made raid 5 my first loss. Thankfully for my sanity, my luck was about to turn around big time on raid number 6. This base was a 2x2 in the mountain near me, and I just needed a little bit more scrap to get my tier 2. So I was hoping that this base would at the very least have some resource in it. But what I ended up getting was a lot more than just a little resource. Alright, we got it. Let's go. Oh my god! Ooh! Oh, there's somebody outside. Oh wow, this is huge profit. Okay, this was a great raid. Oh my god, dude! What? This guy was rich. Wow, well, there's our scrap. Ah, the charcoal. This will let me craft more. Alright, we are done with that raid. What a good raid that was. Raid 6 gave me the remaining scrap to get a tier 2 workbench and a huge supply of low grade that I could use for Molotovs. So it was time to switch over to some flame raids. My first Molotov raid was a wooden wall and then a wooden door behind it. But something about my Molotovs didn't spread properly here, so I had to go get some machetes to finish off this wood wall. And it was while I was hitting this wall that I got pretty unlucky. No way. What? There's another one? And just like that, I lost the raid. It ended up even being the same guy that stole raid number 5. I continued molly raiding for raid number 8, and while the base had a little bit of stone, it definitely wasn't profitable. Raid 9 was a bit more of a gamble since this base was so small, and it definitely didn't pay off. For raid number 10, I tried to molly raid this door, but it was too high up, so I ended up needing to satchel raid it. But thankfully, the base was just wide open and it actually had quite a bit of loot in it. After raid 10, it was time to upgrade to some satchel raids. The main struggle you run into while satchel raiding is how long you sometimes have to stand around waiting while all this loud noise is going off. It can take up to multiple minutes just to break one door using satchels, but they are one of the cheapest raiding methods in all of Rust, so you're gonna see me doing plenty of these throughout the 100 raids. Raid 11 in particular was actually a pretty good raid. This took me 12 satchels to do, but the TC had a lot of resource, and there was a lot of other good loot in here. Raid number 12 would end up being my most expensive raid so far. I blew these first 2 doors hoping to find a pretty open base here, but I was met with 2 garage doors. Oh, no. A satchel raiding nightmare. Each of these takes 9 satchels to break. This base ended up having a little bit of loot, but it really wasn't worth how much it costed to raid. I even went and pickaxed my way into this other loot room, but that wasn't much better. No, man. Raid 13 was actually an extremely good raid. The amount of loot in here definitely made up for my last raid. There was just one issue. At the end of this raid, I put all my loot in a box and decided to go AFK for a little bit, and I came back to being raided within my raid, so I didn't keep any of that. Raid 14 was personal. These guys thought they could get away with building right next to me. No matter how much loot I thought I could get out of this, I could not let these guys build up, and they were going to be online for this raid. Ooh, he's in there. Shock and trap isn't loaded though. I gotta make this play. Okay, let's go. For just a one-door raid, the loot from this base was actually also pretty good. The base I was raiding on raid 15 was actually huge. So first, I mollied this top door just to see what I was working with here, and it ended up looking a lot cheaper than I would have thought. So I came back with some satchels to finish it off. In the end, I only had to go through one sheet metal door here to get all of this guy's loot. And while outside of his TC he didn't have much, he actually had quite a bit of resource in here. This is a prime example of how you should not spend your resource. This guy built this huge base with only 2 doors to get to his main loot, and one of them was a wooden door. Raid 16 was a smaller one. I was mainly raiding this base to get myself a raid base to raid the other bases in the area. It ended up being all open and even gave me quite a bit of profit here. The loot was not too bad on this one. I was about to spend 8 satchels on raid 17 when I noticed something pretty rare these days. Wait, that's twig. Oh my god. No way you have a twig frame, dude. I thought it couldn't get any easier than that until I was greeted with an unlocked door in raid 18. Oh my god. Dude, what are these raids? The loot didn't end up being too much, but I barely spent anything on this base either way. I guess I had been getting too lucky on my raids, and on raid 19, Rust decided to send the entire server to come counter me. No way, there's a guy right there already? I just got done throwing them. Oh my god, I only have crossbows. No, a compound bow! Oh my god, I'm losing my mind. Oh, guy right here. After clearing out a couple players, I came back to try and raid back into this, but my bad luck just continued. He walled? Are you kidding me? He's a coward. He's despawning and walled. Oh my god.
Easy counter rate, easy counter rate.
The raid had attracted a lot of attention, so I took my anger out on anybody who came to PvP.
Listen, not much loot, bro. Bro, 20,000 coal and 2 guns.
In the end, all I came out with was a couple extra kits. For raid 20, I was back to raiding somebody that built right next to me. I brought some mollies to break their wooden door, but as I showed up, they were swapping it out for a sheet metal one. Well, it's my base now. For my cheapest raid yet, the loot in here was actually kinda nice. I chopped up all their bags so that they couldn't spawn back in, and then I grabbed all the remaining resource and headed home. Raid 21 was yet another base that just seemingly popped up right next to me, and once again, I couldn't let anybody live near me, so I got rid of him pretty easily. Oh my god, this guy was farming. I feel bad, he had 314 scrap in that tiny little base. Raid 22 was another small 2-door satchel raid. This base was kind of in the middle of nowhere, so I was hoping maybe it had been here for a while, and the loot ended up being pretty solid. Not the best, not the best. Ooh, okay, TC was actually good. After raid 22, I lost about half my loot in an offline raid on my base, so I moved up to this top area of the map that had some higher tier monuments in it, and I was about to discover the drastic difference in loot based on where you do your raids. Raid 23 didn't really amount to much. Alright, I'll take these scraps, I guess. Raid 24 is when things really started to get interesting. This base was right next to Missile Silo, which is one of the highest tier monuments in all of Rust, so the general loot in this area is just a lot better than most parts of the map. And this little 2x1 was a prime example of that. Oh my god, this guy had an AK? Are you kidding me? What? Wait, this guy was loaded. Raid 25 was an interesting one. This was a really big base, and although it's nighttime and you can't really tell, once I get through this wall, you'll be able to see what I mean. And the base ended up just being entirely open. For only 10 satchels, I got access to this massive loot room. There was so much loot in here that this is the first raid I had to leave some stuff behind in. Just the third raid in this new area, and it was easily the most profitable raid I'd done so far. Raid 26 was a small raid that I did. The space only had 2 wooden doors, but it ended up having a lot of components and definitely being worth it. The amount of components these bases have in them is just ridiculous. Raid 27 was a small base on the shoreline next to large oil rig. I knew from personal experience just how rich you can get from running oil rigs, so I was hoping I could find some sort of jackpot here. Unfortunately, it didn't end up being that good, but it definitely was still profit. For some reason, I decided to go back to shack raiding for Raid 28. I have no idea why I did this, but this did not have good loot in it. Raid 29 was another pretty big raid. This base was a 3x1, so I decided to go through the wall on the opposite end of the drop down, and the design on the inside was pretty weird here. There wasn't too much loot in this area, so I assumed they had a loot room behind this garage door, and I came back with 9 more satchels to raid into that. There it is. Okay. Bit of armor. Oh my god, that is unbelievable. Oh. Okay, dude, these components though, I couldn't have asked for a better raid, or at least that's what I thought, because raid 30 was about to be insane also. Oh, is that the whole base? Oh my god, they left the garage door open. What is my luck today? Oh my god, 4 AKs? Dude, what? This guy was an insane PvPer. Are you kidding me? For just 4 satchels, I got all of this loot. Missile silo raids were just hitting different. Raid 31 is one that I just kind of feel bad for. This guy was just getting his start, and I came over here just absolutely bullying him. Kind of feel bad. I don't think this guy's a weapon to fight back with. No way! What? That's a thing? Okay, wait, I can break this one. He made some good plays, but unfortunately for him, I had enough boom to just keep going. Oh my god, he had nothing. I don't know what I was thinking on raid 32, but this was literally just an external TC, so it had no loot. And that's where I decided to call it for the satchel raids. From here on out, I was moving up to Explo ammo. I didn't plan on raiding this base, but it's only 2 doors to that core. I was doing raid 33 on the fly. Well, I thought this would be a pretty easy raid. I was in for a couple surprises. Wait, what is this base? Is this not core? Oh, he's got a bunker? The raid appeared to be more expensive than I thought. That wasn't the real issue. No way, he just did that. I used what I had left to get in this last door, but I ended up needing to go back to base to get some more Explo ammo. And while I was eventually able to finish off this raid, it ended up costing way more than it should have. Alright, this guy had nothing. Having Explo ammo now allowed me to raid bases at a much faster rate. It was both easier and a little bit cheaper to raid each individual base, and it was much less likely to get countered since I could do the raids much quicker. Although I did find myself in a bit of a dry streak here. I had raided most of the good looking bases in my area, and I probably needed to start exploring outwards more, but I wanted to check all of these little remaining bases, and I really wasn't getting too much from doing that. Raid 36 would prove to be a bit different though. This base had popped up right next to mine, and although it was a pretty expensive raid, I actually got quite a bit out of this one. Alright, we got it. Oh my god, what on earth? What? Where did this guy get all this? 37 was another base that popped up overnight right next to Missile Silo. I found that raiding these active bases like this will almost always profit. Raid 38 was a pretty costly raid. This was quite a big base, and I had to go through so many doors to get to main loot here. But when I got to main loot, I found that everything was inside of an armored bunker, which I was never going to get into. Raid 39 was a very important raid. This guy had built up right next to me and even tried to raid one of my bases. I was currently living in a series of small bases, so I desperately needed to eliminate any threats in my area. I certainly didn't profit from this raid, but getting rid of somebody like this was necessary. Raid 40 was the first raid in a while that I ventured out for. It was just a 2x2, but this base definitely surprised me. Oh, what is this design? Oh, he's got a tier 3. Wait. Oh my god. Oh. Oh, 2 doors for a tier 3 base? This was definitely one of my best raids in a minute. For 41, I raided a base on the backside of HQM quarry, hoping that they maybe left some loot in here. I hadn't really raided any bases next to the quarry yet, so I didn't know what type of loot to expect, but I think that people just use these bases to mainly AFK and don't really store much in them. For 42, I decided to raid this clan's Tugboat. These raids have insane potential, but groups are typically pretty protective of their tugboats. They weren't just gonna let me get away with this. Alright, what do we got? Oh no. It was empty. Oh, there is one out there. Oh, there might be multiple.
Hello, guys.
Hello. There's like 4 of them. Damn. It was a good try. I found a honeycomb 2x2 for raid 43 without any upgrades to the roof, so I tried splashing this the way you would with rockets, but I didn't realize how precise you needed to be when doing this with expo ammo, and I massively miscalculated how to actually do this. But it was fine. I came back with some more expo ammo to finish this, and that's when I made an even bigger mistake. I did not mean to just fall in like that. Oh my god, I'm throwing. I came back again with a ladder, but somebody had figured out what I was doing here. No, there's actually one in there. I don't have another shot. By the time I made it back the 3rd time, I had lost the raid. It's sealed. Raid 44 ended up just being an empty base. And then raid 45 was a base that had already been raided. Oh, there's not even a TC in this base? What? It wasn't until raid 46 that things started to turn around a little bit. The loot wasn't anything too special, but it was definitely more than I was getting on my previous raids. I also killed a full kit that was waiting to rat me when I was leaving, so I guess I got that loot also. For raid 47, I tragically had to raid back into my own furnace base here. Somebody had offlined this, so I just need to get it back. For 48, I was hitting a farm base next to a decaying clan base. I do this a couple times throughout the video because these can be so profitable, but this one in particular didn't go too good. There wasn't even any loot boxes really in here. For 49, I was attempting to raid a small base that was a part of that same group that had the tugboat, but this time I didn't even get to start shooting my explo ammo before they found me. Well, I don't think I'm gonna pull this off. Okay, well, there's like 3 of them dead. I'm gonna start raiding. No, I'm dead. They just all came back, like 4 people right when I started the raid. What a terrible timing. I was just over here and it was so quiet. For raid 50, I had set up a little outpost in the snow and I decided to do a couple raids out here. The snow just always has that potential for sulfur jackpots. If I could get my hands on any of these, it would help a ton with future raids. This base was by no means a jackpot, but it definitely was still worth raiding. I found a pretty large decaying base that still had an intact core for raid number 51. I could get really close to the main loot here, so I decided to try to raid the rest of this. All right, what do we have here? Ooh, wait, okay. I raided into the final room here, but it looked like this group must have been struggling because they didn't have too much. 52 costed me 3 doors worth of explo ammo, and it certainly wasn't worth it. At this point, my raids just weren't going anywhere, so I decided to finally upgrade to rocket raiding. This would prove to be an incredible game changer, and I think raid 53 is a great illustration as to why. A base like this has so many different foundation blocks that the potential door path could be insanely expensive, but with 4 rockets, which isn't even enough to break 4 doors, I can open up such a large hole in the space. This quite literally makes raids that I would have never considered easy raids now. And for just 4 rockets, raid 53 ended up being pretty good. It even had an armored door here, which would have been so expensive to go through. Raid 54 was another base that I suspected of being an oil rig base, and when I opened it up, I could definitely tell that it was. This guy had the weirdest base design and just tons of guns in here. Damn, this guy had full kits. Well, this guy had a lot of like weapons and stuff. I'll actually take that. For 55, I tried raiding another HQM quarry base. This one was a lot bigger than the last one, so I thought maybe the loot spread would be a bit different. This one was definitely better than the last, and it only costed me 3 doors worth of explosives. After that, I tried hitting this tower base that was once a part of a large clan compound. I landed on the top with my mini and blew a couple garage doors, but I needed to go get more boom, and when I was flying away, somebody caught me. Oh. No, no. My next raid would prove to be similarly tragic. I broke the wall on this decaying base hoping it would be a loot room, but it was just a sleeping bag. I did get a little bit of resource out of the TC though. Raid 58 was my next large raid. This was a big oil rig base, so I knew there was huge potential for loot here. And after only using 4 rockets, I opened up every single loot room. The loot in this base was certainly worth the raid also. It was really cheap and these guys had a ton in here. For 59, I found a hidden little stash base on the backside of Missile Silo. This was definitely some larger group space they just had out here to depot loot in, but raiding this definitely paid off. These guys had so much loot for Missile Silo in here. Oh yeah, that was worth coming back for. After that, I hit this weirdly designed base next to Giant Excavator for raid number 60, but for some reason this thing was just completely empty. 61 would prove to be far more profitable. This was a large base that was already mostly decayed, so I only had to break a couple doors to get to main loot here. The loot in this thing was definitely worth it. An HQM quarry base popped up and it looked pretty easy to raid, so for raid 62 I took that out. It didn't end up having too much loot in it. I even raided into their little shop, but that didn't have anything either. Nothing. Alright. Raid 63 was a farm base, and after breaking one of these walls I immediately decided just to quit on this. I've never seen a farm base that just has garage doors spammed like this. This is just actually some freak behavior. I think my brain might have just been off at the start of raid 64. I don't know what I was thinking when I blew this door. Oh, that's a jump up? Oh, I'm trolling. But after my mistake, I corrected myself and blew into the right part of this base. The loot in this base sucked, and I even almost got killed while trying to escape, but thankfully I didn't. 65 was one garage door that didn't amount to anything at all. After that, I raided this ugly triangle spam thing. I don't know what this was, but it had no loot in it. But for some reason, somebody on an attack helicopter came to try and counter me here. Really? There's an attack heli here? Where the hell did this come from? Oh, I guess he's done. Yeah, I don't know what that was, but I'm pretty sure the same guy came back and countered me on raid 67. There just wasn't too much I could do about that. For 68, I was back to raiding Decayed Clan's farm bases, and this time it was actually going to pay off. This side little area ended up having quite a bit of loot, especially these 2 boxes of armor. And then I came back and raided into the remaining main loot area. There was a random assortment of stuff in here, but I managed to get my hands on my first M249 and even a bunch of T's and other random stuff. This is the exact type of base that I was talking about when I mentioned that these clan farm bases can just be jackpots. I couldn't tell you why I decided to raid this base for number 69, but this guy was still living off of small boxes and he had so much loot in here. I don't know if he picked all this up at a decayed base or if he was just running missile silo, but it was definitely a good profit. For 70, I hit another missile silo base, but this one had definitely been emptied out or something. Raid 71 was an active base that had recently popped up, and this raid was definitely going to be special. Damn, he was farming. Oh my god! What? Damn! Okay, what does this guy have? Holy shit, the T's! What? These are all pure Ortiz. Getting 39 pure Ortiz couldn't have been a better find. I was spending pretty much all of my time that I wasn't raiding just farming, so this was absolutely enormous. Never mind all the guns and just other loot that this guy had in here. And to top it all off, it was an online raid. This guy just didn't put up the best fight. For raid 72, I took a gamble on this huge sheet metal bunker base. I invested quite a lot of resource into just blowing more and more of this base, but as I went deeper and deeper into it, I really wasn't getting rewarded with anything, so eventually I just had to call it quits on this one. This has been a depressing raid, I'm gonna be honest. For 73, I raided this camper, but I didn't realize you needed to break the front part of this, and I broke the back part, which doesn't let you get inside of it, so I had to waste a bunch of time breaking into the front part also. But eventually I did get in here, and the loot was pretty good. I raided a sheet metal base on the backside of HQM quarry for raid number 74. I really shouldn't have raided this one based on my past HQM quarry bases, especially considering this was much more expensive, and I ended up paying the price for that. The loot in here kind of sucked. 75 was just a boring 4 rocket raid, not too much loot in here. Next, I raided the sheet metal bunker base. This one just sucked also, though. I really couldn't get a good raid going. I was in a bit of a dry streak here. No way you build a sheet metal bunker base and it's just empty. 77 actually had a little bit of loot in it, but it was nothing that I wanted, and I ended up just leaving without taking anything. Things were going pretty bad, so I tried just raiding the base from 71 again, and hey, it actually ended up turning out pretty damn good. Watch this. Oh, okay. This is looking good. Let's see. All right. Okay. What? What on earth? In this little base? What? Dude, are you kidding me? This is the point in my 100 raids where loot just kind of started feeling meaningless. Just a box of AKs out of a 1x2. What an insane find. Raid 79 was also just a joke. This base had multiple armored doors on it and was insanely expensive to raid. And in the end, it pretty much was just empty. Okay, 2 boxes. We got a grenade launcher. Oh no. You're probably confused why I'm raiding this base again for raid number 80, but I had moved in nearby this, so I just wanted to eliminate anybody close to me so they wouldn't come and mess with me. And yes, this thing was still empty. Raid 81 was the first good looking target I'd found in a little bit. The base was half decayed, so it wouldn't be too expensive to get into the core here, and it was pretty easy to tell which way the path would be. I did have to deal with an auto turret being here, which killed me and was just really annoying to break, but after that I pretty easily got to all of the loot. Okay. We hit the loot, or some of the loot at least. Dude, every box is locked also. I hate raids like this. Loot is looking pretty good though. Yeah, fresh AK. Oh wow, these guys are crafting AKs. This is gonna be loaded. Oh my god, okay. God damn, these guys were farmers. Every box is just loaded. I was right, this base was a gold mine. Every box in here was actually loaded. I continued looting and even killed somebody that came and tried to counter this raid. It would have really been a shame if I lost all of this to him. I still hadn't even broken into the main loot room yet. There was just endless loot in here as well. And in the end, I just got out with tons of loot. After that big find, I found a small base on the water that looked like it could have some solid loot in it. The design was certainly unique, but overall, this was a pretty easy raid for me, and I think it ended up being pretty profitable. After that, I raided this base again, and it ended up being quite special. Wait, is that? Okay, well, we have everything open. Oh, wow. Another just loaded base, I can already tell. All right, man. Let's check these boxes. Oh, my. Like, the resource in these raids recently. I'm just hitting jackpot after jackpot. Let's see, what do we have? Oh, my God. Just the amount of guns in here. Dude, okay, that GP. That is insane. Oh my, the sulfur. Oh my, everything is loaded, all of it. Raiding this base again was definitely one of my best decisions so far. Raid 84 was a small raid, but this base held just enough to probably break even. For raid 85, I hit a large 3x3 that had some sheet metal roofs on it. I thought maybe this guy was planning to build up something pretty big here, but in the end, it didn't really have that much loot in it. For raid 86, I made a sort of discovery for good raid types. This base I was hitting was right next to where a large decayed clan base used to be, so my theory was that maybe this guy had got some of the loot from the decayed base, and if that turned out to be true, this tiny little 2x2 could be loaded. All right, what do we got? Oh, oh my god, dude, over a line of M2s. Dude, what is this? I can't, these bases. No, no, you're not taking my line of M2s. We're out, thank God. Raid 87 looked like it was going to be a pretty challenging raid, but after breaking this ladder hatch, the entire base was just open, and it really didn't have much loot in it. 88 was going to be another big raid. I decided to go through doors from the top down on this base. It was going to take some time to raid all this, so it was a pretty safe option to defend myself against counters. This ended up being another really solid raid. I had to spend a lot of rockets to get to all this loot, but these guys had so much charcoal to make up for all of it, and even lots of other useful resource. Raid 89 was a major disaster. I started raiding into this 2x1 in the snow, and while this base could have been really profitable, pretty early on I killed myself with a rocket here. What? That killed me? And then when I finally made it back to my body, somebody had looted it. Where's my body? No way, did somebody get it? That is so sad. Raid 90 was a pretty basic raid on this 2x2 that had sheet metal roofs, and the loot in here was pretty basic also. Maybe a little bit of profit, but nothing too good. And now we have reached the final 10 raids. I wanted to make each one of these special by targeting some bigger bases that took some extra time to prep for, and raid 91 was the first interesting one of those. This base was quite large and was located on the water, so I pulled up in a boat. It even had 3 turrets on its roof, so I had a feeling there would be some good loot in here. All right, we're in. Okay, it's all open in here. All right, we're into the farm part. I just need to get to the actual loot room part here now. I might need to go back for more boom though. Ooh, that is a lot of components. Okay, what do we got here? Stone. Some kits. Some decent full kits. I'll take these. What do we have here? Okay, this is actually a loot room. Oh, okay, that's perfect. Let's go. Wait, this is TC actually. All right. 91 was a pretty solid raid, but it wasn't really what I was looking for here. For 92, I was hitting this large decaying clan base, and while the loot in here could have been really good, pretty early on in this raid, I got countered in an unexpected way. No! Ah! For 93, I was raiding the biggest farm base in the video so far. This thing was enormous. It took so much resource to get through, but I'll save you guys the time because there was practically no loot in here. For the amount of rockets I spent, I earned such little loot, it's not even worth showing. I had some pretty big plans for these remaining raids, but raid 94 was about to change everything. Oh no, I'm lagging. Oh no. Hello? I didn't realize it yet, but the server had just crashed, and that normally isn't too big of a deal. But in this instance, the server didn't come back on for 2 entire days. I've never seen that in my entire history of playing Rust, which pretty much killed any potential of online raids after this. A server going down for 2 entire days pretty much eliminates any pop left. But when it did come back up, I did complete raid 94. This base was one of the last remaining large snow bases that I actually could afford raiding, and man, snow bases can just be so worth it sometimes. Okay, this was a loot room. Oh, damn. Okay, let's go. Yeah, this base was good. Wow. Oh, a lot of components. Tier 3. Damn. Okay, this charcoal is huge for the rest of my raids. I think I can splash both these garage doors. I don't know for sure though. Oh, that opened up. Just more armor. Honestly, not bad though. I gotta take some of these sets. For raid 95, I was hitting my first large rock base, or I guess you could call this a cliffside base. Either way, when you're raiding these, you never really know how deep it's gonna go, and it's hard to tell exactly how much boom it would cost, so I hadn't raided any of these up to this point. The base ended up being on the lesser end of potential cost, and the loot kind of fell under the same category. For raid 96, I was raiding a small base next to this large decayed clan base. I wanted to test out my theory of this style of raiding one final time before the 100 raids were over. Last time, it got me over a line of M2s, so I was hoping I could get another insane result here. Unfortunately, I didn't, and there was a good reason as to why. I just assumed that this big decaying base was looted, but all the loot was actually just still in here. For raid 97, I was hitting a vault that was a part of this large HQM quarry base. This was actually still active, and it even had a shop in it that was selling HQM for sulfur, so I knew this would be a huge profit. It was just gonna be pretty tough to break into this thing. First, I needed to HV out these turrets, and then I was gonna use 16 rockets on the roof here and open up where the shop was, and hopefully it would open up part of the loot room also. Throughout my 100 raids, I had raided multiple HQM quarry bases, and every single one of them turned out to not be profitable. This was a huge gamble because not only was it 16 rockets to get in here, but I had no guarantee of any loot outside of the vending machine. Fortunately for me though, these guys were loaded. The raid ended up having tons of extra HQM in here, some full kits along with good guns, a stack of diesel, and a little bit more HQM inside of the vending machine. Overall, I was very happy with this raid, and it was nice to finally get a win from raiding an HQM quarry base. Unfortunately, raid 98 was going to be a much different story. This was by far my biggest raid yet. I even built a massive raid base for this one, knowing how much boom I would be spending here, and that was because this was a huge base. As far as main bases went, this was by far the biggest one I had raided throughout my 100 raids, and it took quite a bit of time to get through this entire thing. The tragedy here though isn't any sort of death. I didn't get countered or mess up here, and it's not like the loot was just terrible or something. The issue is, as I got further into this base, I began to realize an absence of any loot, and that was because these guys had despawned all their loot after logging off. Are you serious? Why do people do this, man? Putting this much effort as a solo into a raid just to find a completely empty base is absolutely demoralizing, but I still had more raids to come, so I had to hold my head high, especially because raid 99 was going to be a revenge raid. Remember this guy? He countered raid number 5 and raid number 7. Well, he actually still existed on this server. I hadn't been in the area of my old base for a while, but it turns out nearly 20 days later, this guy was still here. He had this massive compound with like 10 armored bunker bases and 1 main base in the center. So I came over on a little scouting mission to see what I could do. It seemed like something was off with this main base, which let me land a little closer than I would have imagined. So I thought this base was raided, but all these turrets are shooting at me when I landed here. Like, Look at that. Maybe this isn't rated then. The base, in fact, wasn't rated. I don't know what was up with the top of this main base, but I immediately got to work draining all of these turrets. This would allow me to come back and finish off raiding the main part of this base. And after draining quite a few of them, I left on my mini and came back with enough boom to finish off this center base. No, no. No! Oh no. This was an absolute disaster to the start of the raid. And the worst part was there was actually no way to build back in here. So I decided to wing it and just MLRS strike the compound and hope that I could get back to my body. Wait, it opened up! Oh my god, we got it. We got our body. After that little fumble, I finally got back to raiding this main base. But it ended up actually being a bit cheaper than I thought. I was a bit confused with what was going on here. My confusion would only continue as I got into the main loot room. It wasn't necessarily bad loot, but for the main base of a compound like this, it just didn't feel right to me. So I began to explore a bit outside of the center base. I drained a couple more turrets, and then I noticed a bunch of boxes around the inside of this compound. Okay, there's more loot. I feel like there's gonna be more loot out here than in their base. Ooh, okay. That is what I'm talking about. Oh my god, just boxes and boxes of metal frags. It was now clear that their strategy was keeping most of their best loot outside of their main base. So I got to work stealing some of this loot. After breaking all the boxes in the compound, I raided this small base that got damaged by my MLRS strike. Alright, what do we got in this? Oh, okay. What an interesting little stash. It had a little bit of loot in it, but I could tell their main loot was going to be in one of these armored vaults. So I brought 16 rockets over and hit the biggest one that I could find. This is definitely something. Alright. Good low grade. Good kits. Okay, a little bit of sulfur. I had hit their resource vault. They didn't have the most sulfur or anything, but this definitely made a major dent in their supplies. As far as a revenge raid could go, I was very happy with this. There was no way I was gonna break into all 10 of their vaults or anything like that. Getting into this much loot was absolutely insane. And that brings us to raid 100. I'd come such a long way throughout these 100 raids, and what better way to end them all off than by raiding the richest base on the server. And this time I wasn't gambling. I knew that this base was the richest, and that's because it was my base. I had accumulated 99 other raids worth of loot in here. It was so much loot that I needed 5 armored bunkers just to store all of this. And outside of those, my halls were just overflowing with loot. And at the end of this 100 raids worth of loot was just slowly despawning off in some corner of the map. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and let me know if there's something else you would like to see me do 100 of. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.